So we talked about this a little bit earlier, Delver Blade, and it's in the hands of Owen Turtenwald, probably one of the most talented players in any room that he's entering.
Yeah, yeah, he's one of the members of Team SCG from the Pro Tour Theros just a couple of weeks ago. He is one of a few that are in the room today. Huey Jensen being another one. Brad Nelson, of course, also here. So very, very cool. I'm not sure, there may be some other players. Matt Costa, I haven't seen him yet, but he may be here. But yeah, Team SCG.
Yeah,
Big performance that weekend.
I believe Sam Black is supposed to be here this weekend, but
Okay.
I didn't see him in the room yet. Thoughtseize from David Bauer opening it up. Both of these players have won their first round, and you can see the clock up there starts at 55 minutes. Our rounds are a little bit longer at this event just to make sure that everyone gets a chance to play as much Magic as possible. You can get a little bit more opportunity to think. You can see Owen here thinking about that. Force of Will, Tundra, Swords, Mystic. That's a Stoneforge Mystic, and one fetch land.
Yeah, there was a situation. Owen did have the option of essentially discarding 2 Force of Wills for that Thoughtseize, but not very appealing here. He does want to protect that Stoneforge Mystic that I believe he wants to come down here on turn 2 as soon as possible.
If it wasn't for that Scalding Tarn and that Stoneforge Mystic, that hand would look straight out of 1996.
Well, David Bauer doing his best to achieve that goal by removing the Stoneforge Mystic with the Thoughtseize. And leads with a Tundra. Passes back to David. David looks like to have Brainstorm, Ponder, Tundra. Looks like he is pulling a Brainstorm to the front. And a Tundra.
See a Dark Confidant in there as well, and he knows Dark Confidant is not long for this world, so he starts with a Stoneforge Mystic. Stoneforge Mystic can very easily be Swords to Plowshared, but it will have already fetched up a creature.
You mean
a
equipment. Yes.
A equipment, my bad.
Umezawa's Jeet in this case. So Jeet is the choice. Of course, David assuming that he's going to lose that Mystic, but he will keep the Jeet, as you mentioned.
One of the things that you used to see sometimes in the sideboards of these decks is a second Umezawa's Jitte as a means to destroy your opponent's Umezawa's Jittes, but that is no longer the case. The new Legend rule makes it such that you no longer are able to use a Legend to kill a Legend.
That's right. So Swords to Plowshares does take out that Stoneforge Mystic, and Owen plays a Scalding Tarn, passes back to David. David's going to cast Ponder on his turn.
Now, David knows 3 of the cards in Owen's hand right now are Force of Will, Swords to Plowshares. And we talked earlier with Ricky. Ricky and I talked about Force of Will in the grindy matchups. This is another matchup that can be fairly grindy. Force of Will, it's great in that it can stop a spell, certainly. But one of the things that's really frustrating about the card is that often you end up getting to a point where even a single little touch of card advantage is what the game is rotating around. So Force of Will can become a liability in a grind.
Yeah, essentially turning your opponent's spell into a hymn to Torok of sorts. So Ponder resolves there for David. David is going to play a Deathrite Shaman here on his second turn. And he passes back to Owen. Owen has the option of using Swords to Plowshares on that Shaman. He does not do that. He draws for the turn. I think Delver was the draw.
That looks like a Delver of Secrets. Part of the 2-part name for this Delver Blade is the Delver of Secrets. The creature count in this deck is usually pretty small. Often it runs 2 Grim Lavamancers. It looks like Owen has chosen to take out the Grim Lavamancers from this list, the list that was won the last Invitational in the hands of Eric Smith. We do see that he's got 2 Geist of St. Traft, 4 Delver of Secrets, 4 Stoneforge Mystics, and 1 Batter Skull as his primary ways to kill someone. And it looks like he also added in, basically, if you look at Eric Smith's list from that last Invitational, it's -2 Grim Lavamancer for +1 Stoneforge Mystic, +1 Swords to Plowshares.
So Owen spends his turn fetching up a Volcanic Island, gets a Lightning Bolt, well, not gets a Lightning Bolt, casts a Lightning Bolt to deal with that Deathrite Shaman, and then follows up with a Delver of Secrets before passing back to David.
And we go Looking at David's hand, I see a. Is that a Death Right? No, that's a Dark Confidant right there.
We're going to see
Ooh,
Liliana.
Liliana. There are 2 Liliana of the Veil in David's list, and Owen uses that
Immediately.
force of will right away. He doesn't want to see that grinding away at him.
So Owen now, his turn, unable to flip Delver, but still can swing in for 1 here.
Is it going to be a second Delver? It is.
Second Delver from Owen, and that makes the top of his library especially explosive if it's a spell that will flip the Delver.
And we see the judge indicating he wants to have those cards available for everyone to see. You now can check out David Bauer's graveyard. Thoughtseize land, Liliana, and a Ponder.
So David's hand appears to be Snapcaster Mage, Brainstorm, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Dark Confidant, and I believe a land there. He's going to brainstorm here. It resolves.
Main phase Brainstorm. We see a fetch in there. That's a good draw for him.
Yeah, it was Polluted Delta, Wasteland, and another Brainstorm.
Using the foil F&M Brainstorms.
That's right. I think that's I believe that's the only way that you can get that artwork with the new frame, but I could be wrong.
One of the things that's certainly the case. At this point in the game, there are so many promotional cards that have been printed over the years that, and also so many reprints, it can be very hard to keep track of all of the versions of art, all of the versions of frame.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I think there's a Commander version of that artwork. But Wasteland is the land drop for the turn. David follows up with a Dark Confidant, and Cat uses that Wasteland, I believe targeting the Tundra there.
It's interesting because he cast that Dark Confidant first. It's almost like he's baiting Owen. Swords to Plowshares this guy. And I wonder if Owen is thinking to himself, is that a trap? Okay, well, I guess even if it's not a trap, I still want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder if that was either a mistake or if it was David just trying to get that card out of Owen's hand. We see the Ponder. I know the secret. Say the 2 Delvers, and it's Ponder.
Yeah, Ponder off the top will allow Owen to flip those Delver of Secrets into Insectile Aberrations, and now he can attack for 6. Now, the thing is, like you mentioned, David trying to bait out that Swords to Plowshares. I'm not sure what he's protecting. His only creature in hand right now is Snapcaster Mage. I'm sure he'd much prefer to have a Dark Confidant on the table than a Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, if that's the case, I think that was a wrong order of operations there.
Owen is going to cast that Ponder. He finds a Stoneforge Mystic, a Brainstorm, and didn't quite see the 3rd card, but I believe it was the card for the turn. So Delver connects. Other Delver connects. So David Bauer taking 6 there. I'm sorry, Insectile Aberrations to be more precise. David's draw for the turn of Polluted Delta.
We see the fetch. David gives his opponent the opportunity to do something. Owen declines.
Yeah, it looks like 0 main deck Stifle in this list. 0 Stifle at all.
That's another change between this list and Eric Smith's list. Eric Smith did run the full count of Stifles.
Stifle's one of those cards that, for me, it's always super awesome or super awful.
I've loved Stifle for a very, very long time. So I understand why people cut it sometimes, but it's just a card that I've always loved. Are we going to see Jace hitting the table? I mean, that would be kind of a throwaway Jace if it did. You drop the Jace and then not have it survive. So Brainstorm.
Yeah, Brainstorm is the play from David. Finds Wasteland, Swords to Plowshares, Swords to Plowshares.
That's a nice draw, actually.
It's gonna looks like he's gonna put back Wasteland. Jace. Yeah, looks like actually he's gonna keep the Wasteland.
Yeah, this gives him the ability to play around Spell Pierce. He can do double Swords to Plowshares and have mana up to pay for a Spell Pierce.
So it looks like he's putting Snapcaster on top and then Jace second.
Oh,
he's switching back and forth here. But
Oh,
those
look
are the
at
2
that.
cards he's decided on.
His-
Jace and Snapcaster going back on top of
His
the
face there,
library.
he's like, oh, this or that. Oh, I don't know. Wasteland's the only open mana from Owen Turtenwald, so even if there is a Spell Pierce in hand. Oh, and you see he pulls that back. There was already a fetch land played earlier. Owen, there we go. You see our first Swords to Plowshares on one of these Delvers here. Does that work?
So Swords to Plowshares on the stack.
Okay, I think we're just taking a moment on the land question from earlier.
Yeah, there was a fetch land. That was the first play David made for the turn. And then attempted to play a wasteland. So Swords to Plowshares, targeting Insectile Aberration. It resolves, so that Delver of Secrets is dealt with.
And then it looks like he's doing this right away.
Yeah, assuming that there is no Spell Pierce there, considering Owen. Well, I mean, Owen wouldn't have maybe cast the Spell Pierce there anyway. So either way, both Delver of Secrets dealt with, and Owen is left with an empty board.
But he does have a threat. Here it comes. How about this guy?
Stoneforge Mystic.
And it works. Owen Turtenwald, you can find him on Twitter as Owen Tweetenwald, fetches up a Batterskull.
This is the white Tarmogoyf, essentially, right? It's the same casting cost, converted mana cost as a Tarmogoyf, and finding a Batterskull kind of gives you access to a Tarmogoyf-like creature. And David now will play that Wasteland. And here comes the Snapcaster Mage.
Snapcaster's going to get a Swords, get out of here, and now Owen with a Batterskull in hand, but far less than 5 mana.
Yeah, so that Batterskull's going to be stuck in Owen's hand for quite a while. Wasteland will take out the Tundra. Owen left with a lone volcanic island as his lone permanent.
We see another fetch, though.
So Polluted Delta, the play for the turn. Owen passes back. David with a Snapcaster Mage at the ready.
Jace in hand. Does he drop all 4 of his mana? He didn't see a Spell Pierce earlier. He didn't see a Daze earlier. Will he just go for it? Goes for it. Jace the Mind Sculptor, do you have anything? And Owen says, yep.
Yeah, sticking a Jace. Always a very key play in Legacy.
And David's activating the ability, and Owen might respond. Remember, David is empty-handed here, and Owen's like, yeah, no response. Now, Owen was thinking about bolting in response, but with an empty hand, David could only draw 1 card, so a Force of Will wouldn't be able to save his Jace from the bolt.
So David's draw off of that Jace, I believe, was a Deathrite Shaman. There's that bolt you mentioned. Owen does take out the Jace after getting hit with Snapcaster Mage, and David, I believe, passes the turn. Yeah.
Now, you can look by just doing a kind of a count of cards. There are 5 cards in play for David Bauer versus Owen's 2, and David has the 1 card in hand. Owen lays a land to help out, but you can tell Owen is behind in resources pretty heavily here.
So Owen passes back. David is going to... Oh, I'm sorry, that was an Inquisition of Kozilek. Not the Deathrite Shaman, I thought it was.
I thought it was a Deathrite Shaman, too. And we see that he reveals the Batterskull, which David should actually have remembered was the 1 card left in Owen's hand.
Yeah. So there you see Inquisition of Kozilek is not able to take the Batterskull. The converted mana cost has to be 3 or less. But very, very good card in Standard and in Legacy. I mean, when it was in Standard.
And David Bauer here at 13 life. Owen Turtenwald at 21, now down to 19 after the Snapcaster Mage attacks. And we see Dark Confidant join the table. This is a card that Owen's going to want to get rid of right away, but unfortunately for him, his hand is now Batterskull and Spell Pierce. So Dark Confidant goes to work, gets a Liliana of the Veil, knocks David down to 10, and then David draws the Swords to Plowshares.
So I think it's fair to say Owen Turtenwald with a blue-white-red Delver list and 4 lands in play, he's flooding out at this point. These Delver lists can survive on much lower mana count, and I think 3 lands is the max you usually want to have.
And it's funny because he's also almost wanting to draw a 5th here just to have access to his Batterskull.
Right. So the invitational cards are going to crash in Snapcaster Mage alongside Dark Confidant.
Spell Pierce, perhaps? Boom, Spell Pierce. 1 card left in Owen's hand. It's a Batterskull. Owen hoping to Windmill Slam, I think, a land here to drop that Batterskull.
And he finds a Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah, I would main phase. There it goes. There, Dark Confidant down. Not let that get any more cards.
Right.
Snapcaster in play with 4 land versus 4 land and nothing for Owen. And
Brainstorm off the top for David. Looks like that is... No, he's going with Snapcaster here. So Snapcaster, Thoughtseize you. So that will get rid of the Batterskull. And now Owen is not hoping the top of his deck is a land.
Now I think he wants a Geist of St. Traft.
He found
not even that wouldn't
Rainforest.
even do very much for him because of the 2 Snapcasters. He probably wants a Stoneforge Mystic, actually.
So Snapcaster into the red zone. Owen finds a Ponder. He's going to cast that here.
1, 2, 3 cards. Land. Let's get rid of them.
Yeah, he's going to shuffle. Get a random card off of that Ponder.
If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here in the booth with Joey Pasco. This is SCG Live. We're covering the StarCityGames.com Open Series featuring the Invitational here in Indianapolis, Indiana. The next Invitational is in Las Vegas, Nevada at the end of the year.
That's right.
Be there if you can't, make this one. But remember, there's still an Open Series of Standard and Legacy the next few days. Get here. There are already people telling us they're driving here as they listen to us. What's the play? Umezawa's Jite off the top for Owen Turtenwald off of that Ponder shuffle.
Yeah, Naked Jite, not super impressive for Owen right here at this point, but if he can get a creature to pick it up, he'll be in much better shape. So Snapcaster into the red zone yet again for David. Owen down to 5 now. Polluted Delta is the land drop. David passes back. Owen untaps, finds Spell Pierce. His hand, Spell Pierce, Misty Rainforest. Not looking great for Owen, although he is not out of... he's not out of this game just yet.
Down to 1. Pass.
And he finds a wasteland.
There we go.
Scoop him up.
To the sideboard, Owen Turtenwald's list. Wow, okay. What does he have? Well, he's got Blasts, Pyroblast and Routed Elemental Blast, which have some use. He has another Geist. He has Vendilion Click. He's got Sword of Feast and Famine, Wear Tear, Grim Lavamancer, Path to Exile, Grafdigger's Cage, and Rest in Peace in his sideboard. But he's playing here against kind of a mid-rangey control deck. I do like his Pyroblasts as an option to fight against Snapcaster Mages, Brainstorms, Ponders, and just like random counter spells that his opponent might have. And I also like Geist of St. Traft. If he can keep the board clear, it's very, very hard for his opponent to actually interact with Geist of St. Traft. Vendilion Click, another good card to help clear the hand of useful things, particularly in a Stoneforge Mystic matchup. Sword of Feast and Famine, also very good in this kind of grindy matchup. Wear Tear, I also like against a Stoneforge Mystic opponent. Finally, I like the Grim Lavamancer because it basically kills every creature in David's deck. Now, that is a lot of cards to bring in.
Yeah. Well, he could just bring them all in and not side anything out if he wanted.
That's true. Actually, I did this at the Grand Prix last week.
Just played 75 straight
No,
up.
well, I played 61 twice after sideboarding. Because with the new rules for sideboarding, you have to register a 15-card sideboard or... pardon me, that's incorrect. You can register a less large sideboard, but the thing is, you don't have to sideboard out everything. As long as you've got a 60-plus card deck, you are good to go. So he could do something like that. I do think that the Force of Wills is a pretty easy card to get out of here.
I agree.
And other than Force of Will, the rest of it, maybe Daze might be a card to get out of here because the game might go too long for Daze to take any real impact on the game. That would be 8 cards. And with, let's say, Geist, Vendilion Click, Sword, Wear Tear, Grim Lavamancer, that's 5 cards, and then 3 Blasts. That's 8 cards.
On the other side of the table, David's sideboard is 2 Supreme Verdict, 2 Flusterstorm, 4 Force of Will. He has those in the board there. 1 Vendilion Click, 1 Sword of Feast and Famine, 2 Lingering Souls, a Disenchant, and 2 Surgical Extraction. I think here for David, I'm liking the Disenchant for those artifacts, and I like the Flusterstorms to deal with Owen's deck. Very, often runs off very little mana. Flusterstorm usually going to get the job done there. And Vendilion Click also like that one. These players here deciding exactly what they want to do. And if you're just tuning in, you're just in time to catch Game 2 of Round 2 of the StarCityGames.com Open Series featuring the Invitational live from Indianapolis. I'm Joey Pasco in the booth with Adrian Sullivan. And yeah, we've got quite an exciting weekend coming up. As you kind of mentioned, This is the Open Series featuring the Invitational. The Open Series is still happening this weekend, so
Absolutely.
if you are within driving or flying distance, which I think just means if you're on Earth, uh, if you're in the distance in range to make it to the event, you can come out and play Standard tomorrow in the Open. You can play Legacy on Sunday, and you can play in a number of side events. The Ascension Immortal Tournament also happening on Sunday. Sunday at noon. Winner gets their likeness on a future Ascension promotional card, $250 Amazon gift card, and an exclusive playmat. You can check out our invitational fact sheet page on StarCityGames.com for more info on that one.
If you were watching the background, you could see Riki Hayashi walking amongst the competitors in the background. He has left that area, but one of the things that I hear from our director, Jesse, our scouts and our sources tell us that Brad Nelson has won his second round. Brad Nelson is playing the Sneak and Show deck.
Yes.
That really, I think, kind of came to prominence last year. And that was, I think I first saw it really start hitting the scene really hard right around the time when I think Cedric Phillips started doing commentary. If I remember correctly, you and Cedric were doing commentary at Origins in Columbus when there was a ton of Sneak and Show, as well as one of the big tournament debuts, not the debut, but one of the big tournament debuts of the Shardless Bug deck.
Yeah, I remember Gristlebrand being big that weekend as well.
Yeah, I think convinced Darwin Castle to start playing that list because I was playtesting for the Star City Games Open Series in Columbus, and Darwin was there promoting Ascension, and he was there basically as one of the Ascension guys, and I handed him the Shardless, not the Shardless, I handed him the Sneak and Show list, and he proceeded to kick me one way up the street and then back down the street with it, and the deck I chose to play, I just lost every match to him. Maybe I should have picked the other deck.
All right, looks like the players have shuffled, and we're underway here in Game 2. Owen Turtenwald going to lead with a Volcanic Island into a Ponder.
And we see, looks like Grim Lavamancer, a very powerful weapon in this matchup. A land, and I didn't catch the other one. It looked like a blue spell to me. And he keeps it, and I believe he now has a... he's going to have a Grim Lavamancer on turn 2, most likely, unless he casts one of his many 2-drops.
He does have a Stoneforge Mystic in hand as well.
Yeah, the Stoneforge Mystic is a great drop on 2. You don't need to lay the Grim Lavamancer right away.
So David Bauer leading with a fetch land. That's a Flooded Strand. Going to find us... Let's see. Looks like he goes with an Underground Sea. David's turn. What do you think? Thoughtseize here?
Looks like a Thoughtseize open. Could be a Deathrite Shaman.
Could be. Or an Inquisition, as we saw that last game. Inquisition pretty good. And there it is. It is Inquisition. So we're going to lead off with that, says David. Owen gonna have to show us what he's got or answer the Inquisition.
There is the possibility of a Daze in the mix. Even if Owen doesn't have the Daze, him pausing like this is one of those things just to remind his opponent that Dazes exist. There it is.
That's a nice way to remind his opponent that Daze exists as well.
Just cast it.
Cast it, yeah. And he draws a Daze off the top, too. He of course, knew that was there off of that Ponder. He's going to play Wasteland, and we've reset the board entirely. 0 permanents in play here. David's going to cast a Deathrite Shaman here on his second turn off of a Tropical Island, and Volcanic Island Lightning Bolt is Owen's response.
This is one of the things we see happen in Legacy all the time. With such efficient answers and efficient threats, both players just playing one spell in their early turns, one spell of consequence, and having it negate the other person's play.
So David here thinking about what land to play. He's going to go with Flooded Strand. He's going to cast a Brainstorm off of his Tropical Island. And what does he find? Looks like Flooded Strand, Stoneforge Mystic, and Underground Sea off of the top of that Brainstorm. So he's going to put back, looks like a Caracas. His hand looks like a lot of lands. He's got a Brainstorm, he's got a Swords to Plowshares, he's got a Stoneforge Mystic off of that Brainstorm. He may have double Stoneforge, but I'm not quite sure about that. And then 3 lands.
That might be a Lingering Souls?
Yeah, I think it might be Lingering Souls. It's another white card. He does have 2 Lingering Souls in the board. He may have brought those in.
Yeah, Lingering Souls is a very good weapon in a grind matchup because all of those 1/1s have to be answered somehow, and then you get flashback.
Right. So David looks like he's going to put back that Caracas and a fetch land. Thinking about
Taking a long time on this one.
So
That's Souls, yep.
it's a promo Souls, as you mentioned about the Brainstorm. That's a promotional Lingering Souls.
I think that's from the Soren Markov deck, Soren versus Tybalt.
Would it be foil though?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think. I'm not 100% sure. When it comes to the alternate art cards, I sometimes struggle a little bit. Out there in the Twitterverse, let us know if you recognize exactly what version of the art that is for Lingering Souls. I'd be curious to find out.
I love the all the alternate art we've been getting over the past few years. As a fan of Magic, as a commentator, it makes things a little more difficult. What card is that?
I wonder if we're going to get an alternate art Ashiok that actually has the Planeswalker escaping the borders of the card or not.
I don't know. Maybe. So it looks like David cracks his fetch land to follow up Owen's play of Grim Lavamancer. It's at the end of Owen's turn, and he is going to find himself facing a Swords to Plowshares. Swords on Grim Lavamancer. Owen now could daze this. He does have daze.
Okay, and that's an F&M promo Lingering Souls with the same art as the dual deck,
I
says
see.
Lands Delicious.
There you go.
Thank you, at Lands Delicious.
That's Chris Lansdale. So the daze does deal with the Swords to Plowshares, and Owen is left with his Grim Lavamancer.
Anthony Lowry also among many of the people saying something. Grim Lavamancer, Spell Pierce on that Lingering Souls. Look at that, 1 mana from Owen Turtenwald, but he has a first permanent that does anything down.
Grim Lavamancer going to swing in for 1. No red mana source. Well, there's a red mana source.
Stoneforge Mystic. Are you going to get a Batterskull or are you going to get a Umezawa's Jite? He
Looks
also
like he's
has
going with
access
Batterskull.
to Sword of Feast and Famine if he sideboarded it in. And as you say, Batterskull is in hand now for Owen Turtenwald. A card, when it was printed, people said, really?
Right.
Really?
Yeah, pretty much. It was one of the cards that came out in the big New Phyrexia leak back when that set was just about to come out, and I think the internet went insane.
I honestly, I saw it and I thought to myself, okay, maybe this is actually a fraud. Maybe this is not real.
It just seemed like an unreal card, and it is, and you see it seeing play here in Legacy for a reason, because it's just that good. So Marsh Flats is the play for David. He's going to cast a Stoneforge Mystic of his own here, or at least he's thinking about it. He's going to switch up the mana there. Yeah, Stoneforge Mystic is the play from David. Owen says, yep, go for it. David checks his hand to make sure there's not any equipment sitting around in there. It looks like he's going with Umezawa's Jite as the target.
I mean, he's going to need to find something to carry that Umezawa's Jite. So he goes with Batterskull. Yeah, the problem with that Umezawa's Jite as a grab is that Grim Lavamancer in play can make it very hard for the very first token to get on.
Yeah, it can just shoot down that Stoneforge Mystic. I imagine that's what Owen's going to do anyway. Shoot down that Stoneforge Mystic, but David being 1 land off of hard casting Batterskull makes it decent. Still a decent grab for David off of the Mystic.
He casts Brainstorm afterwards. He does have a Lingering Souls in his yard, so there was the possibility of flashing back the Lingering Souls, but he's been dazed already, and that would tap him out, so I think he might be a little gun-shy of falling to another daze.
Then again, you've already seen 2 dazes, so what are the chances you're going to see the others? So off of the Brainstorm, I saw a Liliana, I saw a Vendilion Click, and I'm not sure what the third card was, but David's hand is going to be Brainstorm, Click, and Lingering Souls after this Brainstorm finishes resolving. Oh, he's thinking about it. It was Stoneforge Mystic was the third card, so he's going to put the Lingering Souls back instead and keep the Liliana. So his hand now is Batterskull, Vendilion Click, Liliana of the Veil.
And now Owen is in a position that is very enviable. He's got more relevant cards on the table, that Grim Lavamancer will be able to shoot down his opponent's
And
creature.
that's
There it
immediately
goes.
what he does, yeah.
And if he gets another land here, which he has in hand, then he can activate that Stoneforge to get a Batterskull down. You see him do this right away rather than let his opponent untap, and you might wonder why. You can do that as an instant. Well, end of your turnitis kills, folks. One of the things that can happen, you can activate your Stoneforge Mystic, but if they cast a Vendilion Click or anything like that, or if he stifles, that would be a moment where he wouldn't necessarily be able to get the Batterskull down.
Right.
Particularly if a Vendilion Click put it to the bottom of the library. A stifle you can always try again next turn, but Owen realizes there's not really much reason to wait. Supreme Verdict is one of the only potential reasons.
Right. And Supreme Verdict is in David's board. It's a 2 of. So it's certainly a possibility, although we haven't seen one yet in David's hand or in this match. So David fetches at the end of Owen's turn, finds a Tundra, draws for the turn, finds a Thoughtseize off of the top. So he's got a number of ways to find out what's going on in Owen's hand. He's got Thoughtseize, he's got Vendilion Click.
The one and only Brian Kibler says on Twitter, Batterskull really was actually the title of my first article talking about that standard format. And then he gives a little tongue, like, and I'm with you, Brian.
Yeah.
Really? And you can see it in play here on Owen Turtenwald's side of the board. A Thoughtseize comes maybe a little touch too late for David Bauer to influence the game like he'd like. And look at that hand. Land.
Thanks for the free shock, says Owen. Stoneforge Mystic off of the top for Owen. He's already got one active.
Thanks for the note, Brian. I had forgotten about that article, but I remember it now. One of Brian Kibler's fellow Hall of Famers is here. That's William Jensen.
That's right, baby.
And William Jensen, a favorite, I think, to do very well in this event.
So Wasteland is the play from Owen. Going to knock David down to 3 lands in play as his only permanence.
We see a response here, Vendilion Click, and I think he might be thinking about targeting himself. There's only one fresh card for Owen, and he does. He puts a Liliana of the Veil to the bottom.
Draws a Polluted Delta. And now Wasteland finishes resolving, leaving David with just 3 lands. Stoneforge Mystic, the follow-up play from Owen.
Ouch. And look at this. He's still got that Grim Lavamancer. That Grim Lavamancer is owning the board. If he wants to, he can kill that Vendilion Click at will.
I imagine we'll be seeing that momentarily.
Another note from Twitter. Cedric Phillips now 2-0.
Ooh, the Goblins doing some work. And there you go. Grim Lavamancer takes out the Vendilion Click. Owen smashes in with his Germ token holding a Batterskull and his, for all intents and purposes, Squire.
Yes. And David says, you know what, I cannot get out of this. Let's try for game 3. Perhaps he'll try a slightly different sideboard plan. Perhaps he'll stick with it. Owen goes to the sideboard. One of the reasons you might see someone going to the sideboard is perhaps things did not play out like they wanted to. You know, I like to invoke the names of people who say, I think, very smart things. But one of my favorite comments that a player has made in a while, again, I already mentioned him earlier, Brian Cole, he said, you know, sideboard guides, they're not very useful because you don't sideboard against a deck, you sideboard against a player.
That's right.
You sideboard against what a player plays like, you know? When the player plays in such a way that you realize, oh, sure they're a red deck, sure they're an aggressive deck, we'll use standard red as an example, but they sure are coming out more slowly, and it seems like they hold back more. That influences your choice of how to sideboard. You might play very much the same way, or you might shift your own choices as a result. And for Owen here, not only is he now going to be on the draw, which influences certain things, perhaps dazes are less valuable, right? But also, he has certainly seen some behaviors from his opponent that perhaps Owen feels like mean other cards are going to be more valuable. And so we see Owen going to the sideboard. It could just be that it's a switch because of the play or the draw. A card like Daze might be far more valuable on the play, which, you know, makes sense since you're going to be ahead in mana. Or it could be that he's seeing something out of how David sideboarded or plays to change his own mind about what's valuable.
Absolutely. And you see both players now shuffling up. If you're just tuning in, I'm Joey Pasco in the booth with Adrian Sullivan, coming to you guys live from Indianapolis, where the Star City Games Open Series featuring the Invitational is underway. We're headed to Game 3 here in round 2 of 16 total rounds. We're going to have 8 rounds of Legacy, 8 rounds of Standard, split up over the over the Swiss rounds. So we've got 4 Legacy for you today, and then 4 rounds of Standard later on. And then we're going to have the same thing tomorrow, and our top 8 will be Legacy.
Yeah.
So, kind of interesting. I think I heard you and Ricky talking a little bit about this, but we've got that new Commander set coming out soon, and those
True
cards
Name Nemesis.
Right. Those cards are legal for Legacy.
I mean, I don't know if we have True Name Nemesis in our system or not yet, because it's not actually officially released yet. It's not something that is in stores yet, I don't believe.
Right, no, not yet.
But wow, True Name Nemesis. Will that make Merfolk real again? If you don't know what True Name Nemesis is.
Baby Progenitus, I've heard it.
Wow, that's nice. Baby Progenitus. Blue 1 for a 3/1 Merfolk Rogue, I think. I'm not sure about the subtype.
About the Rogue. It's a Merfolk, though.
But it's a Merfolk. And protection from a player, which means as they have written protection from player, your spells can't target it.
Right.
And your creatures can't block it.
Right. Yeah, it's like unblockable hexproof, essentially. It's kind of like what it's got.
Yeah, and I'm told that once we have those in the system, that will be something we can show you.
Right.
But they're not even available for sale yet, so.
Yeah. The other card that I thought was interesting was the white card. It's white X. For some reason, I'm having trouble remembering the name, but it's white X, and it's essentially put target permanent on top of its owner's library, X cards down.
Ouch.
So we'll talk about that in a bit.
Deathrite Shaman starts off this with a. That's always a sick play to me. Underground Sea into Bird of Paradise. I mean, it's not literally Bird of Paradise, but when you can be a black-blue deck and start off with that is just so gross. No land in a graveyard to make the Deathrite Shaman do anything.
That's right. So it's not a Bird of Paradise in this instance. But Caracas is the second land drop for David Bauer. Owen with just a Tundra.
And he could have. He has a fetch land in his hand. He could have had access to that extra mana should he want it. He chose to go another route.
Wonder if it was an accident. But he's going to go ahead and cast a second copy of Deathrite. No, he's going with a Dark Confidant here. Well, it looks like he's trying to make that decision. He's going with second Deathrite. So Deathrite Shaman, the plays from David on his first 2 turns.
One of the reasons he might not have gone with the fetch land, Delver Blade, as played by Eric Smith, runs Stifle.
Right.
And even though Owen Turtenwald is playing that archetype, he's playing 0 Stifles, so.
Yeah, David's still playing around it, though. You can see the. That's the value of playing a list that's slightly different than other people, the established lists, where people will actually play around cards that you aren't even playing.
One of the things that might end up being a cost to no Stifles is if he plays against Death and Taxes, not being able to stifle Mother of Runes is going to be a huge deal.
So Owen just plays a land and passes. David plays a third land in the form of a Marsh Flats, and looks like he's trying to decide what he wants to do. He's going to go ahead and at least
it looks like a Dark
to
Confidant.
cast a Dark Confidant. He's going to go ahead and attack first with one of the Deathrite Shamans. Owen says, all right, hit me with the little skull. Dark Confidant.
And that was not even the one he put forward. He's got a second one in his hand.
Ah, yeah.
That was coming from the back of his hand there. You can see a Liliana, Dark Confidant, and a land.
Tropical Island there, I think.
Yeah. Owen Turtenwald fetching. He is fetching.
But he's also cracking a fetch line.
Owen Turtenwald fetching, and I believe he's going to kill somebody. Is it going to be Bob?
It
Dead
is.
Bob. Now, Owen Turtenwald very famously won the Vintage World Championship in the finals against Dark Confidant himself, Bob Maher. And Bob Maher lost to his own Dark Confidant in play. So I do find it kind of fun. If you don't know why Dark Confidant and Bob Maher are synonymous, the image there, the likeness of Dark Confidant, at least the original Dark Confidant, is the likeness of Bob Maher, the Hall of Famer for one, but the invitational champion when back in the day you'd get your own likeness on a card. Interestingly, we have chosen to copy that, and we give you your own likeness on a token for winning a StarCityGames.com Open Series featuring the Invitational Championship money, and also immortality.
That's right. So, Owen's going to cast a Stoneforge Mystic for his turn, fetching up an Umezawa's Jite, tutoring up an Umezawa's Jite. So, Jite goes to the hand. Just got a message. Sounds like our the commander decks that we were just referring to are going to be on sale very soon, but they are currently available for pre-order.
Yeah, so what you can do, you can actually put it in your basket, pick it up, and it'll ship to you whenever it gets in.
That's right, as soon as they're available.
November 1.
That's coming. That's right around the corner.
Yeah, that's right after Halloween.
That's right. It is. Immediately following Halloween.
That sounds like a nice treat. Give yourself a treat right now.
I like it. Yeah. Celebrate Halloween a little late. Just a day late. So, fourth land for David Bauer is that Tropical Island that we saw in his hand earlier. He's going to tap 3 lands, cast Liliana of the Veil, says sacrifice a creature, Stoneforge Mystic goes away.
This is a rough spot for Owen. Wow. And I believe there's a Dark Confidant still in hand. He can cast it. Yep, there it is. He can cast it. Oh, no. He's choosing just to go on in.
I would be aggressive here. I liked the Dark Confidant.
I like putting the Dark Confidant in play. Liliana is never happier than when she's got Bob on her arm.
Owen taps 3 lands of his own, and a Geist of St. Traft makes its first appearance in the match.
Now, Lily is a great answer to Geist of St. Traft, but she's already been dropped down to 1 loyalty, so it'll take 2 turns before it would be able to potentially kill the Geist. Look at that land.
So David here is going to tick up the Liliana. Owen discards a Spell Pierce. David discards a Tundra. So David with 4 lands and 2 Deathrite Shamans and a Liliana of the Veil in play. Owen with 4 lands and a Geist of St. Traft in play. Owen at 13, David at 19. Dark Confidant comes down for David.
Do I see an Umezawa's Jite in Owen Turtenwald's hand?
Yes, he tutored it up with that
Stoneforge
Mystic.
That's right. So here's what's going to happen. He's probably going to put it on the Geist of St. Traft. The Angel is going to kill the Lily, and then he's going to get some counters. And he's going to be able to tear up a lot of the board here.
Yeah, he's going to likely lose the Geist of St. Traft, but he'll be able to trade away trade his Geist for the entire other side of the board.
Or at least nearly the entire other side of the board. It'll be pretty close. It'll be, I think, all but 1 creature would survive. Sorry, pardon me. All but 1 creature would die.
Right.
And that's presuming he only has an Umezawa's Jite.
Right. He could absolutely have something else to go with. He's going to go with Jite. Equips to the Geist of St. Traft, and he swings in. Angel token coming in at, I believe, the Liliana.
And now David Bauer has a decision to make. And Owen does not appear to have any tricky cards in his hand, so this is going to be Dead Geist in exchange for Dead Dark Confidant, Dead Lily, Dead Deathrite Shaman.
Right, it's going to leave David with 1 Deathrite Shaman on board if things go as it appears. So all 3 guys going to get in front of the Geist of St. Traft here. David making sure that the Geist is not on board once the dust settles. And Owen's going to order the blockers here. Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
That's right. Dark Confidant first. Deathrite. All right. It all works okay. And both Deathrites still on the table currently. Actually, okay, so he did lose 1. The Jite counter took it out. So David Bauer left with that lone Deathrite, as we suspected. Owen left with an Umezawa's Jite.
Now, Owen's life is pretty low right now, and Deathrite Shaman, it can deal 2 life a turn. So there's a Delver, which I believe David is going to have to find something for, or else.
So Delver Jite is threatening on the other side of the board for David.
David at a healthy 18 life right now.
Owen at 9, David at 18. For those of you who may be listening and not watching.
Right,
right. If you're driving, for instance, from Tulsa, maybe.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. A 10-hour drive. I hope that you enjoy listening to us on your 10-hour drive.
Yeah, shout out
Zyko Mike.
Zyko Mike, yeah, watching or listening on the drive. I listen a lot too. Like I will listen in the car, so like to keep everybody updated if they're not looking at the life totals.
So apparently Paolo Vitor wanted to know who had said you sideboard against a player, not against a deck. That was Brian Kowal who originally said that. Umezawa's Jite of his own. What a rip from David Bauer. Equips it to his Deathrite Shaman, comes on in, and Owen Turtenwald very wisely does this awesome play. Give your Deathrite Shaman -1/-1. I will block. You deal 0 damage. Now, that was a really smart little play from Owen Turtenwald. A lesser player might not have seen it.
Yeah, and I have a feeling David didn't see it. Owen's going to go ahead and equip his Delver with that Jite, swing in for 1 because it did not flip, but Owen follows up with a second copy of Delver of Secrets. The board now is David Bauer at 17 life and 5 lands in play alongside an Umezawa's Jite, completely naked, no creatures, no counters. Owen Turtenwald at 9 with 5 lands of his own, 2 Delver of Secrets, 1 holding an Umezawa's Jite with 2 counters on it. So Owen with the clear upper hand here despite life totals. Delver's not flipping for the second turn in a row for Owen, but I don't think that's too big of a liability right now. So Swords to Plowshares from David is going to take out the Delver holding the Umezawa's Jite, and Owen's going to connect for 1 here with that other Delver.
And
5 mana. There's a Batterskull.
Now at this point, I believe David Bauer is in the unhappy position where there are almost no cards that he can draw that will do much here for him. A Batterskull of his own would help, but his opponent has Umezawa's Jite, and he scoops it on up.
He realizes the futility of fighting against both Umezawa's Jite and Batterskull on the other side of the table. So Owen Turtenwald wins the match 2-1 here in round 2 of the StarCityGames.com Open Series, featuring the Invitational live from Indianapolis.